Welcome to all my ideas. As we mentioned earlier, other than glucose, there are other hormones also plays important role in regulating our blood glucose level. And such hormones are known as counter-regulatory hormones. You can see that the insulin and glycogen-like peptides plays or it will stimulate the glucose uptake from the muscles or glucose uptake from the blood into the cell inside the cell, and at the same time the hormone known as glucagon, epinephrine, growth hormone, cortisol, catecholamine, somatostatin, progesterone and prolactin. This will resist the insulinic action or it may promote the glucogenesis. So, a well-balanced hormonal influence plays great important role in the normal blood glucose level in a person. So, whenever our blood glucose level is high, automatically the beta cells will secrete increased amount of insulin molecule and thereby keep the blood glucose level in a normal level. And at the same time, if the blood glucose level is low or say in hypoglycemia, the secretion of insulin will be very low. And at the same time, to counter the condition of hypoglycemia, automatically the alpha cells of our pancreas will releases more amount of glucagon, and the glucagon will stimulate the hepatocytes which store the needed amount of energy as in the form of glycogen with the help of an enzyme known as glycogen synthase enzyme, which will convert the stored glycogen into the glucose, and thereby the same may secreted into the bloodstream, and thereby we can maintain a normal needed blood glucose level. So, other than insulin, the counter hormones also plays great important role. But unfortunately, we focus only with the hormone insulin. And let us see what happened when a person becomes diabetic. As we mentioned earlier, you know that it affects the carbohydrate, protein and fat metabolism, and we cannot move without explaining the role of GIT. While describing or while explaining the diabetes, most of the doctors may ignore the role of GIT in regulation of blood glucose level. Because most of we people are focusing only with the insulin or a maximum with a glucagon, and at the same time we may ignore the neurohormonal mechanism of hepatobiliary system with the pancreas. Along with the endocrinal functions of pancreas, with the endocrinal functions of our liver, our GIT plays great important role in giving signals to the pancreas how and when and at what level of insulin has to be secreted. The pancreas can understand the demand of glucose or demand of insulin or demand of other hormones only by receiving some signals from our GIT. But unfortunately, we neglect the same. On examining a diabetic patient, you know that more than that of the diabetes, our patient may also having chronic GIT problem like peptic ulcer or CS stomach or autoimmune conditions like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease or polyposis. So various disorders will damage the mucosa of the GIT, and the same mucosa is very responsible for the synthesis of various important hormones, important enzymes, etc. Let us see which are the main hormones helps the pancreas to synthesize the insulin and other hormones. Before that, let us have a look over the gastric function. As you know, one of the main important hormone is hormone of our sense of hungriness. We are controlled by a hormone known as ghrelin. So, the role of ghrelin leads to a sense of hungriness. That means whenever we become very weak, automatically we feel hungry or sense of appetite. And at the same time, after having food, then the specialized cells of our GIT will, especially the second part of the duodenum, will release the hormone known as leptin. And the release of the leptin will communicate our brain. Then only we feel a sense of satiety. So the hungriness and satiety also plays important signal mechanisms to our whole body or to our central nervous system and directly to the pancreas. Let us see how the GIT that give signals to our pancreas to synthesize and not to synthesize the amount of insulin or hormone glucagon. Here you can see the incretins. Incretins are those specialized hormones which are mainly present in the small intestine, and along with the incretins there is other enzymes that are known as GLP-1. That the expansion of GLP is glycogen like peptides, and at the same time, like that of incretin, there are specialized cells which secretes the specialized hormone known as anticretins. And the anticretins that inhibit the insulin synthesis, and incretins and the glycogen like peptides with the GLP, that is K cells, specialized cells of the GIT K cells that stimulates the insulin, and anticretin inhibit the insulin. So a balanced release of these incretins and anticretins gives stimuli or signals to our beta cells of pancreas. Only by that our pancreas can have a sense of demand of insulin, or how much amount of insulin can release into the bloodstream. So in any condition which damage the morphological or histological structure of the small intestine or the second part of the duodenum, that will damage the specialized endocrinal cells which present in our GIT. Say incretins and anticretins may not give the proper stimuli to our pancreas. That's why our pancreas may fail to release the required amount, or that's why our pancreas fail to regulate the release of the insulin. In such condition, abnormal blood glucose levels can be seen even after food, or even in the absence of food, because the GIT plays great important role to give instructions or to give signals to the endocrine cells of our pancreas. So anything which affects the incretins and anticretins with a GLP-1 and GLP of K cells, that will affect the insulin release of pancreas. That is why in persons with a GIT problem like ulcerative colitis or peptic ulcer or Crohn's disease, or in personalities with a fatty liver or cirrhosis or CA liver, or in personalities with autoimmune hepatitis, etc., are very prone to have a condition of diabetes, because they lose the, or they fail to hold the very straight regulation of the hormonal balance, especially the counter hormonal balance. And that is why the insulin, even in person with a high amount of insulin or a required amount of insulin, but the insulin cannot act properly. That is why most of our patients with diabetes belongs to type 2. So the gut hormones plays great important role, like incretins, which stimulates the insulin, and the glycogen like peptide of specialized cells known as L cells and K cells that stimulates the release of the insulin. And along with that insulin, the anticretins that inhibit the insulin, the ghrelin increases the hungerness, and leptin leads to a condition of satiety. So a very balanced level of, you can see here, a very balanced level of hormones which stimulates the insulin secretions, and a very balanced level of hormones which inhibit the insulin release, that plays a great important role in the normal hormonal balance, especially the insulin by GIT. But unfortunately we give only the, or we may know only the role of insulin in regulating the blood glucose level. But actually the insulin may be innocent, or insulin may be very sufficient, or insulin may be in very effective with a very strong insulin. But unfortunately the pancreas may fail to synthesize and release the same because of the improper signaling from the GIT problem. That is the main aim of discussing with the GIT role with you people. And next about, we have to study the classification, the basic classification of diabetes. You are very, I know most of the data were known by you people, but like that we have to study it in a very detailed manner, or a very structural understanding of the diabetes is very, very essential, because in modern science the diabetes is considered as the mother of all disease. Okay, so that I think we can study the classification in the next class. Thank you for watching. Thank you.